Greetings all, welcome to Everything Borrowed, where we sit down to share stories and have conversations with entrepreneurs to artists and everyone in between. Today's episode is powered by Blake's Hard Cider, 100% fresh pressed, all natural and gluten-free, straight from our family's 75-year-old farm in Southeast Michigan. Find us in your local grocer or have Blake's direct shipped to your home by visiting blakestore.com. Use promo code EverythingBorrowed to receive 10% off your first order. Must be 21 years of age. Please enjoy mindfully. You hear that, ladies and gentlemen? That is the sound of McClure's spicy pickles being opened. My guest today is none other than the Prince of Pickles himself, Bob McClure. On today's episode, Bob and I dive into making it in the craft food space, innovation in food distribution, how businesses like ours can compete with big money brands through down and dirty marketing. Bob is a true friend, a fellow entrepreneur, and I truly enjoy my time with him. Go support my boy and buy McClure's pickles whenever you see them, because who doesn't like a good pickle? Thanks for coming, man.
Yeah, thank you.
I was telling you before the show, my wife has been living off actually these baby Dills. And it's a real thing when pregnancy hits, pickles go up in consumption. It's insane. I'm experiencing it firsthand. How's business been?
Very good. The pandemic was, an uncertain moment for everybody, right? And as a business owner, we weren't really sure what was going to occur. And I mentioned before we started talking how a lot of our customers, some of our larger ones, just said, hey, we're going to hold on purchase orders. We're going to take a time out. We weren't sure what was going on. In addition to our food service restaurant business just being totally cut off at the knees. So we were like, is this kind of the end here? What are we going to do? We gotta diversify fairly quickly. A couple months into the pandemic, I think, what was it, April, May, the orders started coming back in, purchase orders weren't delayed anymore, and we really saw a big uptick in purchase orders.
And, did you see that like certain products were more in demand, or was it just like the whole portfolio, or like what was?
Yeah, most all of our jarred stuff. Yeah. People wanted to load up their pantry, have something that they could eat and enjoy, right? Because they were in, clearly stressful conditions. Their whole lives
the
were
COVID-20 that everyone put on.
Yeah. It's like you want something comforting, right? And you want something that and you can trust. So I think people go to brands that mean something to them. Mm-hmm. Not only in great times, but especially during times of
comfort
duress.
Food, man. And things that you can go back to. So, I know your story super well, and I think a lot of people do, but you kind of have an interesting kind of genesis story, which is like, when people are like, throw in, fate or things like that. It just seems like the stars really aligned to kind of bring you guys onto the scene, and it's in a very organic and authentic way. So, for the listeners, can you talk a little bit and just about how McClure's came to be?
Yeah,
I think it's an awesome story. I love it.
We've been really fortunate. We're very lucky. My brother and I grew up here in Metro Detroit, and we had a family tradition of making pickles growing up. We'd go down to Eastern Market, we'd grab fresh cucumbers. We didn't love it as kids, right? We're getting up at 5 a.m. to go down there with our grandparents and parents, and forced to grab pickles and stuff like that, right? And it's the middle of summer when you want to be outside, playing around in the backyard.
Right.
So we go down there, we're picking up fresh produce, but we're forming relationships and bonds and traditions that in many ways today gets kind of lost, right?
Yep.
In the modern family, when we're like so connected to our TVs and our phones, our grandparents live in different states, stuff like that tends to push us apart.
Yeah.
We need to find things that bring us together, right? And food is definitely something.
Well, I always said, like with what we do here at Blake's, like we're in the memory making business. We're not, in the products. We do food, beverage, entertainment, but we're really in the memory making business. And and we're about kind of those, facilitating those experiences and those opportunities to have family memories and make tradition and things like that. And I feel like that's very much the same spirit that brought about McClure's.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, and we never thought of having a business out of it. We never were like, this is the path we're doing. Our parents always encouraged us to do what you enjoy doing. We love you no matter what. Go out and do it, right? So I went into I went to school for acting and performance.
Did you?
Yeah, live theater, film, television. And I went out to New York and
that's awesome.
And tried to hack my way through.
Yeah. What did you want to do? Like Broadway, like live stuff?
I loved live theater. Yeah, I loved live theater. I got my MFA in classical acting, for Christ's sake.
Seriously?
Yeah. A lot of Shakespeare. So that was fun. It was great because
awesome.
I got attuned to.
You're a more interesting person right now than you were 5 minutes ago, because that's awesome.
I got used to being in front of people.
Yeah.
Really diving into language.
That skill set works in business, though.
Yeah,
you have to, whether you're promoting your product, talking to your employees.
You're telling a story.
You're telling a story, and you're articulating your ideas and your thoughts and your words. And so I could definitely see how that's like a good base for business.
Yeah, I loved it. And one thing, if you've ever been on like a commercial or a set, there's craft services, right? That's the best place to go.
Yeah.
You get an omelet, something like that. Mm-hmm. And so I would take Pickles to set and be like, hey, Crafty, can you set this out and stuff like that, and just get people to try it.
Yeah.
And
were you trying to spark the idea of this company like when you were doing that, or was it literally you just had a bunch of pickles?
Yeah, I think we were just like, hey, we really like it. We wanted to kind of test it out.
Yeah.
Right? My brother was back here in Detroit. He was finishing up his PhD in physiology. So he was going to music. He was a classical guitarist for a long time. He's an amazing classical guitarist.
Bunch of savants over at the McClure's family.
And then he got his PhD in physiology. Yeah. And then he's like, nah, don't want to do this. So this started kicking around and taking off. And we were like, all right, well, we've got to focus on the pickle company, whatever it is at this point. And our parents at the time, they were like, well, look, we've got some equity in the house. Why don't we take out a home equity loan? So they mortgaged their home again, and they gave us $40K to buy awesome. Rent our first space, buy a couple of heating kettles, and crank it out by hand.
They believed in the two of you enough to do that?
Yeah, they did, right? We had a nice little whatever contract you call it.
Yeah, right.
Interest, nice little interest note on there. But they believed in it, because banks at the time were like, nah, we're good.
Couple of actors and guitarists wanting to make pickles.
Show me your last two products, quarters or whatever it is. We're like, no, we don't have that.
Didn't it get picked up by like the New York Times in it kind of had a kind of a entry in like kind of a large way, and that's obviously there was a lot of the the Brooklyn Detroit kind of connection, and so. Was that really because this was forming while you were there and he was here, kind of conceptualizing this idea, or how did that Brooklyn thing really take hold?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I was living out in New York, pursuing acting, right? Joe and my folks were back here producing product. I was doing very small batches out there in New York.
Okay.
And really
same recipe?
Yeah, same recipe. Yeah. Trying to get it into these like cheese shops and specialty food stores. We weren't going into like major grocery stores.
Right.
We were just like, we can't do it.
Right.
But we were like, there's an audience for this that cares about really good quality food made with great ingredients by, good people.
Right.
And that was our audience. They were willing to pay more for a better quality product. So we'd go into the stores, we'd say, hey, I'll give you a free jar to sample out for every case you buy. That's standard. And they're like, all right, we'll try it. You sell it for $3, we'll double the price and we'll make some coin off it.
Right.
And it stuck. We weren't sure. We were like, how are $10, $11 pickles going to sell? Right? When everything else in the marketplace was $1, $2, $3.
Right.
Right. But we knew we didn't want to be in the middle. You either got to be high or low.
Right.
Right. And we were like, well, let's go the high route because it's stuff that we care about. We care about producing stuff, and people who care about buying that sort of thing aren't really going to look twice at the that final price. So the New York Times got a hold of a jar. This is Florence Fabricant. She's a food writer. She used to be a food writer for the New York Times. She came into one of our early stores, the Brooklyn Kitchen. It was a friend of mine who owned a kitchen store in Brooklyn, right? And this was like the only food product they had. They had pots, pans, all kinds of like great, cooking stuff. The only food product in there was like McClure's, right? Because I lived down the street from them. And the New York Times was like, what's this? It's the only food you got in here. Is this something really good? So they tried it. They picked it up, and they were like, these are great. Can you give me the contact for these people making the pickles?
Right.
Sent her some more product, more samples, and she was like, where's it being sold? And I'm like, there's like 3 shops in America that sell this stuff right now, and you're about to write a national article. We're in trouble.
Yeah, right.
We had a very janky website up. It was like hand-drawn, all this stuff.
Your website's great now, by the way.
So, yeah, I mean,
perusing it last night in preparation, it's great. It's up right now, but yeah,
thanks.
It's great now.
Yeah, so it's so interesting how, and then, as we talk in a little bit about how like digital transformation.
Yeah, it's insane.
Can take place and how you need to like constantly be innovating.
I would say that I thought we were ahead of the game digitally a year ago, and now I feel like we're behind.
But yeah.
It's like it's that fast. It changes. It's like, holy shit,
I know.
dude.
I know. So we had the ability to like, you could buy something online on our site at the time and ship it out via UPS, right? In like just case quantities only. So it was like 120 friggin' bucks for it to ship to your home. So people were like, well, it must be amazing. It's that expensive. But it really helped us take off, right? And then we got more attention, and then so all of a sudden new stores. And then around 2009, 3 years after we started the business, Ted Allen from the Food Network wanted to put it on his show, and that put us out to a whole new audience. And that was right when Williams-Sonoma, which is a high-end retailer, kitchen retailer, put us in all of their stores. So you could at least get it in one location in every state of the country.
For us, it was always like, where can you find it? When you have one place to tell them where for sure, it always kind of helps the communication when you get a million emails, like, where do I find this? Like, okay, where do you live? How many miles from,
Yeah, that's how it is now, right? When you're in 10,000 stores, you're like, you need to get a store tracker.
Yeah,
and that's costing you like $800 a month on the back end to manage it.
Yeah, we have this thing on our website called a Cider Finder. So you just type in your zip code and it tells you what stores have it. And, there's so much to do with, with enabling kind of the digital side of making an authentic food product. You don't necessarily think that, when you're starting out just trying to make a great product, but you get into all the, the e-enablement now, and, how do you, I don't know what is the breakdown. I mean, I'm sure you're very heavy at retail, but is your e-commerce piece a real piece of your business, or is it more for the fans?
It's a small piece.
And for us too, and I keep thinking I'm doing something wrong by not having a larger, e-commerce presence, but I don't know if that's true.
I don't know. I think it's we want to move more into that direction.
Yeah,
right?
Same here.
Because we think that's kind of, at the end of the day, consumers are looking for kind of ease of transaction, peace of mind. I mean, you can see how Amazon has really dominated. And now with their what was it, 4 or 5 years ago, the purchase of Whole Foods, they're really finishing up that last mile and taking a huge chunk out of the food space with putting everything and getting it ready for you.
I mean, don't you think at some point Amazon's going to be, and they kind of already are, I think, in certain markets, but I mean, it's basically you go to Whole Foods and it's going to be like next day delivery, Whole Foods to your door or wherever you live.
Yeah, or even
like that's coming.
Even same day within a couple of hours, right? Yeah. And a lot of those other big box retailers have also had to, restructure.
I know Walmart's like moving into that
Kroger.
space. Kroger, is moving into that space quickly. Meijer's not far behind. I think that, being in the CPG space and, thinking about that, I always kind of wanted to protect our brand from the inevitable consolidation of the shopping experience a little bit. And, wanted to always bolster a stronger, e-commerce presence. And I don't know if we've resourced that mission correctly yet at Blake's, but, I do think there's something there. And I don't know if it's maybe in the form of subscription boxes or like different, packages, the products in a different way. For you guys, I don't know, Bloody Mary kits or some shit.
You've got to have something unique.
I think so, right?
I don't know how to reach, that is a very big challenge of like, how do you reach, it's a very dense competitive landscape. Right. There's so much noise in the digital landscape, right? People getting ads every minute, people who have more money than you to spend.
Yeah, right.
How do you get the awareness? Whereas when you go into a grocery store, while it's still fairly congested, you have a place. You're kind of a captive consumer walking through that store, right?
And you guys have, like, when I go through Kroger, you guys have great space. Like, you have whole...
Where you got racks.
Yeah, you got like the boar's head feel. You have your own McClure's section.
And that's the exception.
Right.
That's the exception, right? So
right.
Kroger is an amazing partner in their ability to merchandise a brand's products when it's it's working together for us, right? Now I've tried to pitch retailers on, hey, you put this rack in here, you're going to get a 30 to 40% bump passively without a promotion.
Right.
But a lot of retailers are like, no, we're a clean house policy. we want, if you're going to put a rack, it's going to be ours and you're going to pay for it and stuff like that. Right. Because I understand they don't want to become, Super Bowl. Everybody's putting in their own ads and racks and stuff like that. Then it's no longer really their space.
Right. It's taken over. Right?
Exactly. Right.
Who is your best customer? Who's your biggest customer?
Well, best versus biggest.
There you go.
There's
I call myself
two different things.
Who's your largest? We'll start there.
So Kroger is our largest customer. We sell in, I think over 600 to 800 of their cheese shops and it's called their cut and wrap stores.
Okay.
So they've got over 2,500 stores. We're just not in all of them.
Got it.
But they are by far our biggest in terms of revenue. They're moving a good amount of product. We sit in the perimeter of the store by the deli.
Yeah, I think
so. That's where you're getting all this.
It's great placement.
Yeah, so you get specialty cheese, stuff like that.
Yep.
HEB down in Texas, like HEB is a phenomenal customer, just in the sense that they're really only in Texas, but they, I can't remember seeing their revenue figures. It was like $34 billion or something like that for just Texas. Right? Yeah. You figure they've got such a dedicated consumer demographic that is walking through those doors every day. And we were like, we've got to be a part of this movement. If it's in HEB, they know that they've got the trust of their shopper walking in.
Right.
And the same model, it took me like 2 years to get into that account. And I was like, it's got to go deli. It's got to go deli. We've got to get these racks in.
Right.
Like, are you kidding me? This is a grocery item. And I was like, it's not a grocery item.
Yeah.
It's specialty foods.
Yep.
It needs a special place. And you're gonna find a way to market more effectively to your shopper by having them be here next to the meats, next to the cheeses, to the parm wheels, and all the stuff that you're going for.
I think
premium planning.
I think you're right on with that, because it's like I don't know. I look at your products as charcuterie-esque. There's parts of your product mix that fit right there, and I think that's smart that you took that approach, and that it seems to be paying off. There's always, jars gone when I'm there picking them up. So,
So one of the, you asked the question about who's our best customers, and we've never forgotten the small mom and pops.
Yeah.
That is like a very important key part, I think, of any brand's business. Yes. As they start to look at growth and they start to get a call from a Walmart submission or someone saying, hey, I want to get your products. Take that opportunity and go for it, but never forget kind of where your foundation started, right?
Sure.
Because that's a key support. The Westbournes, the Bushes, the Nino Savagios here in Metro Detroit.
Yeah.
And all the small cheese shops across America, because those are independent business owners who really, they have the way that they compete against the Krogers and the Walmarts of the world is that because they offer a unique experience in their store and a communication with the customer.
I mean, the Vincent Joes, the Randazzos, the Savagios, in Metro Detroit here. What I like about that experience is it feels concierge like they are very attentive. The people on the floor know the products that are there. It's kind of like you're getting expertise, in your shopping experience a little bit.
Yeah, so. you have to, and you can. I don't know where that's going to go in the future, right? Kroger's they've got the Murray's cheese shops that we're in. That's a very specialized experience. They've got a certified cheese professional.
That's
in
cool.
every one of those stores. They take
who knew there was such a thing?
Training,
yeah,
right. Going behind that,
and
that's in 800 of their locations. So is that going to erode some of the specialty of these smaller independent stores? I don't think so, because I think those smaller stores will inevitably innovate and find a way.
Yeah, I think that when you look at just the evolution of everything. I think that experience will always be unique and intimate, and I think to the degree that there's always innovators and entrepreneurs in the food space like yourself and us to a degree and others, there's going to be a place of people trying to make it as it were, and I think one thing about specialty retail is it gives the up-and-comers an opportunity, if they have a good product, and if you can make it there, that's the first step on the journey to making it, in big box retail, as they call it. So I think there'll always be that kind of first-to-market opportunity for, the specialty retailers. But it is interesting as you see Kroger's and Meijer's and, larger retailers understand that customers want that expertise and that specialty, and they're doing a pretty good job of it too.
Absolutely, they have to. They have to keep a unique perspective on that customer. I also think there's brands that don't go, and it might not be part of their strategy to go with smaller retailers.
Right.
You know, they've got an infusion of capital from investors or something like that, and they have to show a massive, return or something like that, where they're not going to go. You know, they're gonna put it into like a large kind of distribution channel, right? And if those small mom and pops get it, fine, great, no problem. That's a different model than what we took. We really said we have to build out, a very strong foundational network of smaller stores and then grow it from there. One, I think it creates a brand equity with our consumers. That otherwise we would have had to, you're just you're buying it.
Yeah. I mean, there's two ways to make it in our world. I think we're in the same world, although, pickles and apples, they're similar products enough. But you either come onto the scene with, VC money, and you're just going to spend your way to success. And some people have that, and some people do that, and it works. Or you kind of grind it out, and you kind of earn it on the streets a little bit, and that's, I think that creates a more authentic story long-term and brand equity, like you said. And I think you guys do a great job of that. And I think that's why, people are proud to buy it, and they feel good when they buy your product, because I think it kind of resonates with people. And I do think, consumers are smarter than I think they get credit for. I think people do, and especially this the new generation, coming up, I think they know the essence or the soul of the brand, if you get into kind of that, that conversation. And I think that does resonate with shoppers. So I think that bodes well for guys like you and I. Yeah,
there's a lot of money like in the capital world, has realized that it's authenticity that consumers buy, so that now all of a sudden there's this influx of cash into these natural brands, right? Well, it starts to, kind of erode that originality of the brand, right? And while I think there's a balance that you could take some capital to grow, whether that's, from a traditional kind of lender or through a private equity VC group.
Sure.
But I've seen plenty of entrepreneurs who I've talked to who go through a kind of a startup phase, and they're like, well, I want to raise a bunch of capital. I want to flip it and sell it in 5-7 years.
Right.
And I said, like, look, don't go in with that strategy.
Yeah.
You're going to wind up shortchanging a lot of valuable lessons throughout this journey if you're just kind of going in with this end goal.
Yeah, I in the alcohol space, I know a ton of people who did that. And you know what? The brand stalls out when that's your goal. I mean, if it comes, good on you, and you can make that decision when it comes. But for me and for us, and our model has just been kind of head down and just kick ass. I mean, that's kind of it. And then but there's no other people, when you get investors and they want their money back, and it gets into this weird world where you're not necessarily serving your customers. You're kind of serving the shareholders a little bit, in some ways. And that's what I see happen to some of these people who really can't get started any other way than take on, investors and money. And, you got to do what you got to do as an entrepreneur. So whatever road you take to get there, it's not, no one can judge it. It's your own. But, it definitely comes with, there's strings attached, with a lot of that.
I personally, I like the headaches, whatever headaches that I create on my own.
Yeah, right.
Right. Owning, just like, owning your own business, your own manufacturing facility, has a ton of challenges, right? But they're my challenges. Yeah. I get to work for myself. I get to work with my brother. And we own our stuff, right? Maybe it's like that I'm a control freak or something like that, right? I mean, but I enjoy doing stuff, right? And honestly, making mistakes is probably one of the biggest things that helps you learn to do something different in the future, right?
Yeah, and I feel that you're always making mistakes, and you just hope they're not the same ones. That's kind of it. That's kind of the goal. Yeah. When you look at your product mix, it's obviously grown quite a bit, and I'm looking at it now. By the way, I think you should for sure do a Bloody Mary like e-commerce pack, like for sure. I think that would be like one thing that you could totally, like, maybe you have it, but I think that would be like just like a no-brainer, like a kit for sure, and like just one item, and just like, here's our Bloody Mary kits. Like you just scream Bloody Mary kit to me. I don't know. I'm only thinking this because I'm trying to figure out what the hell we're trying to put together a farm kit or whatever, trying to work through that. So my brain's been trying to figure out that for us. But, obviously your product mix is, pickles first, and, that's really the bread and butter. But, what is your, when you break down revenues, and you don't have to talk dollars if you don't want, but percentage wise, is it like 80% pickles, 20% everything else? Is it, is pickles still the number one thing? Is there another product line that you think is going to, in a good way compete with pickles?
Yeah, so you're about spot on with the kind of distribution mix of pickles. It's like 80,
Nailed it.
20% other stuff.
Yeah.
We do have a couple of new products that are coming out that we think will be a great, in a good way, competitor to our jarred line. We've dabbled a lot in new products. We've killed off products that we thought would be good and are just like, they're total bombs, or we don't have enough money to compete with kind of existing competitors.
Right.
And we just said, look, it's not worth throwing that much money into it to see if we can get some traction.
Sure.
Let's stick to what we know best.
Mm-hmm.
We've been really attracted and gravitating towards like an on-the-go, healthy eating, fresh snacking consumer.
Like a snack pack.
Yeah, right. And so
like sold in C-stores, like convenience.
Yeah. So we had these snack packs, like little pickles in a pack.
Yeah.
And we had those out for about a year. There was another competitor in the space that literally just set the bar.
Yeah.
Like,
I think I know who you're talking about. They, they're the only ones you see, but they're like the little.
They're everywhere.
Yeah, they're like the resealable deals.
Yeah.
And like, all of them are like, low in calorie, low carbs. So it's like something, it's like one healthy thing you can actually get, or not bad for you thing you can get at like a gas station.
Yeah, right. So they did a great job of getting into the marketplace first, creating a unique item that was different from what was out there. We wanted to do the same thing in a shelf-stable version.
Right.
Theirs is fresh. It's got to go refrigerated.
Right.
So we said, all right, can we do this non-GMO? Can we do this shelf-stable? We did it for a while, and the costs were extraordinary, so we couldn't compete on market price.
Right.
And the competitor already set the bar.
Right.
They'd already owned it.
Right.
And they had like a ton of capital to go ahead and keep keeping the price low.
Right.
So we just said, look, it's not gonna be worth the effort to do that. So this newer product that we've got coming out, we've got some equipment coming in that's going to help us automate a lot of the process. But it is still in the fresh space, so we're looking in the refrigerated cold section, smaller containers, so that you're consuming it faster. You don't feel like you have this big kind of unwieldy heavy jar.
Yep.
And it tastes completely different than our jarred product.
Right.
Still the same process.
Right.
But it's amazing the difference between a cold filled product versus a hot filled product that gets pasteurized. Totally different. We're still saying the same ingredients, the same ratios.
Right.
But it's just a very different tasting product. And we think consumers who are, either haven't been introduced to our brand are going to really like this flavor. And those that already know the jarred products are going to go, hey, this is different. I'm not going to cannibalize sales.
Right.
I'm still going to like this jarred product, but I can also get this too.
Right. Well, yeah, I do think, it's almost like at some point when you're talking about innovation in the food space, there's new things that come up, but it's like, is it package size? Is it, convenience? Like, what are the ways in which I'm always trying to think about that? Like, we're trying to do a single serve juice line that we're going to launch this year. And, we're trying to, traditionally we do gallons and half gallons of sweet cider. That's it, but we grow, every fruit you can grow in Michigan. It's like, okay, we could do more with this juice thing, So we're going to kind of give that a go, but it's like that whole line is based on, single serve. We're not going, gallons and half gallons with it. And, we'll see kind of how that goes. But, when you think about innovation in that space, I'm always looking at, I actually read like the packaging regs like a lot because I'm trying to figure out like what new packaging thing is. Like I look at some of our success in hard cider. We were like the first like legit hard cider that was in cans, when everything was in bottles. And I think that really helped. Now everyone's in cans and it's like, okay, what do we do now? It's like go back to glass. I mean, but you're always kind of looking to see, what is the opportunity to kind of differentiate and, make unique, not only your product, but the packaging too. I think that goes a long way. But you were talking about, to that end, you're talking about kind of some automation that, the pandemic brought on, so you could keep your people in the value added jobs as opposed to just, on the line type stuff. So, what is that? Is that on the packaging line? Is that, in the filling line? What'd you automate? Yeah,
so they haven't been installed yet, but we're down on the what's called like the end of the line process, where the jars come off some of the overhead conveyors. Mm-hmm. Oh, actually, let me back up a bit. First, Joe installed 2 like large overhead conveyors. So basically, it comes out of our pasteurizing tunnel, gets raised up above head over the ceilings. So it takes kind of a long walk.
Got it.
In our plant, right? And I don't have the, if I don't have the capital to expand my plant, I've got to get creative with where conveyors go. Yeah. And this big conveyor goes up and over and around, then down over to the labeling and case packing machines. Mm-hmm. The labeling is automated. That goes super fast, but I've got 2 team members who are basically taking those jars off of a rotary kind of accumulation table and putting them into the box. And then they push that box into a taper, labeler, and then it gets palletized by a robotic arm. Mm-hmm. I've got to pay that person to be there, right? And push a box open, put the jars in a box. Right. The hardest part of our process is not assembling a box and putting jars in the box. It's packing pickles into the jar. Right. It needs to be done by a human. Right. It takes 30 to 45 seconds to pack a jar. The more people I have packing pickles, the more jars I get out the door, the less it costs me, the more money we can make as a company and sell and get more pickles to more customers. Right. So the more people I can get over to that packing line, the better, right? Yep, so we looked at and we were like, what's the ROI on X investment if we sell this and get this person over here on our output per day or per week or month, whatever it is. Right. And we're like, this is a no-brainer. So we got 2 what are called cobots. They're collaborative robots. One will actually pick up the box. That's awesome. Open the box, set it down on the conveyor. Another arm will grab the 6 jars, put them in the box, push the box through the case taper. And that area will be, I'd say 90% automated until there's, a label change or you got to refill the box thing. Right. But for the most of that production time, I've got that person back over on the line packing pickles. Right.
That's awesome. Are you I've been to your facility and it's awesome. Are you guys expanding your footprint as far as production? Or you got enough space in your current one to kind of continue to grow, or how do you think about that in the future? And will you keep production in Michigan? Does it make sense to have production closer to the cucumbers, I guess, and pickles?
Yeah, we want to keep it in Michigan. I'd love to expand. There's definitely enough space to push out into the parking lot area. Got it. But we're going to use every square inch before we do that. Yeah, right.
That was our deal. I was, we needed another canning line, and our COO, who was actually the CEO of Hillshire Foods, for like, I don't know, like 10 years or whatever. So he's like super wise, like, food guy, been in like the space forever. He's like, not until you are using that line almost 24 hours a day, I'm not going to allow you to buy another canning line. But it is a lesson in kind of, he calls it sweating the asset. He's like, you got an asset there. You got to work it. You got to work it like as hard as you can until, and then when you don't think you can get any more out of it, there's a way to get 10% more out of it. Figure it out.
Yeah. We're doing one shift a day, 5 days a week. So we have a lot of excess capacity, right? Before we blow out some walls and build onto it. Sure.
But you'll always, you think as far as production goes, you'll be Michigan, Detroit for. Yeah.
The only thing that's made out in Pennsylvania is the sauerkraut, as I mentioned, and our potato chips are by Great Lakes Potato Chip Company in Traverse City. Yep. But everything else, we'd like to keep it here. We bring in right now. We're pulling from Georgia. Just started pulling cucumbers. Then Michigan will start in July.
Got it. So. I was going to get to that, but since you kind of brought it up, the sourcing from the farm sourcing, are you working with particular, growers that are, speccing the types of pickles and the types of cucumbers that you want.
Yeah, early on, there's no way we could do that.
Right.
We're too small. We're buying, by the bushel
Whatever
instead of by the truckload.
Yeah, right.
Now we're buying by the truckload, and we're contracting for the year to say we're
Right.
taking, X number of truckloads a week or a year, and we get to pick the seed variety. They get to plant that. There's a band of growers, and by band I mean like geographical band.
Yeah.
Right. We have to move where the warm weather goes to. Right. We just finished up Mexico. We pulled a little bit from Texas. We're moving up to Georgia and North Carolina. Then we go to Michigan.
Yep. And then you restart.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And surprisingly, Michigan's still, I think, the number one grower of pickling cucumbers in the country.
Hell yeah.
It just has got a very short season.
Yeah. For those who don't know, Michigan is the number 2 most diverse agricultural state in the country, only behind California. And we are, the world leading producer apparently in, pickling cucumbers, sugar beets, asparagus, high bush blueberries, cherries, blueberries, and people need to fucking know that.
Yeah,
I think it's fucking cool.
Yeah, let alone just the fresh water supply that we have.
It's a great goddamn state.
Yeah. Yeah, so we love working, in Tim Smith, his farm's not too far down from here. So we buy acres of dill, fresh flowering dill from them.
Oh, awesome.
And that changes the quality, like just the difference in terms of fresh flowering dill versus like a traditional kind of supermarket dill that you get in a box. Right. It's totally different because you're getting the pollen. All those flavors that go into it, it's remarkable how it changes the palate.
As a farmer, you kind of make fun of the hippies sometimes when they get into like the honeys, right? And they're like, oh, the varietals. Yeah. But then I actually took the time to try it, and I was like, holy shit, you can actually tell. You can tell these are apple blossomed, pollinated, bees, and honey. And I'm like, okay, you can pick that up a little bit. I'm like, all right, they're not full of shit. It's actually real. Yeah, because when you grow up around it, and it's just like honey's honey, and bees are bees, and you don't really realize that what they're pollinating is affecting it. So, I want to talk to you a little bit about your distribution. How on the alcohol side, we have a 3-tier system. Alcohol distributors go to retail. Food's a little bit more. You can be your own distributor. You can go through brokers, distributors. How have you guys navigated? Some people have their own trucks on the road, making deliveries. How have you guys thought about the distribution part of your business?
Yeah, that's interesting. And sometimes I envy the alcohol side of things. While it can be constricting, right? Yeah. You've got to work with a number of distributors. I know Michigan's a control state.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, and all states are actually a controlled state as it relates to alcohol. And what I would say about the 3-tier system, it sucks until it doesn't. And basically, there's a barrier of entry for sure, and you got to earn it. So like when we were first coming up, we have like 90 distributors, and they're all awesome. And there's a reason why we're the fastest growing cider company in the country, because our distributors rock. But I remember as a kid trying to get you're coming in there selling a product, these are Bud Light,
Miller houses
with just selling millions of cases.
You're at the back of the book.
And you're like just this kid, and you feel anxious and nervous, and you feel stupid, like your product sucks, and it doesn't, no one's going to pay attention to it. And, I was like, God damn it, I wish we could just
Well, that's how it is in the food world, too.
Okay, all right, so it's no different.
Yeah. I mean, there's a huge barrier to entry, too, right? Mm-hmm. They're like, well, how much money do you have to market and promote this product?
Yep.
Who else are you working with? Because if you are working with XYZ distributor, we don't want to touch your product. Mm-hmm. There's pressure to do that. We have always wanted to work as direct as possible with the retailer, right? Some retailers, when you're smaller, they're like, nah, we're not going to do that. Right. Because we don't want to have to issue a separate check, a separate purchase order, and worry about, 1 to 2 cases or your minimum order quantity of a pallet. We don't need a pallet. We need a couple cases, and I can order that through Cisco or UNFI or one of these larger distributors and get a full truck and cut them one check, right? And I know I'm going to get it on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, during my delivery time. Yep. So we do work with those larger distributors as well as smaller distributors throughout the country. We export to the UK. We export to Canada. We export to Australia and New Zealand.
For real?
Yeah. And
that's awesome.
it's great. It's great business.
How'd that happen? Like, did you
meeting them in New York? Yeah, to trade shows, trade events.
Okay,
yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, and
they were just like
an awesome relationship.
That's great.
You know, they love American branded foods, and quality foods.
Sure.
Right? You know,
I always kind of have an idol or a company I look up to that try to emulate and borrow some best practices and look at. And is there anyone in the food space particularly that you're like, I love everything they do? They're like McClure's kind of models themselves after that a little bit. Is there anyone that's in the alcohol space? You have some like people who paved the way. You have the Boston beers and some iconic CEOs that kind of help develop the space and the culture and all those sorts of things. So on the food side, is there that, or is it just there's so much in food it's hard to like we're a little more niche-y in like the craft beer.
I'd say pick and choose. Like there's a lot of like I really like what they're doing.
Yeah.
I really like what they're doing. And
sure.
Even some of our competitors, it's like that's the best. Like wow, that's a really great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Like let's see how that sticks and how it plays out.
Right.
And maybe we can do something similar and innovate a little bit more on it.
Sure.
I'm a strong believer that even if you're a competitor, it's broadening the category
Yep.
and getting more people aware, especially in a kind of a premium product. If I'm putting, $7 to $9 pickles on the shelf and I've got to compete against a $2-3 jar of pickles, well, the more $7 to $9 pickle competitors are on the space means there's more people becoming aware and willing to go towards that section of the store.
Sure.
Now then it's my job to really make sure people remember McClure's when they walk in that door.
That's right.
And taste it and try it and want to come back for it.
Mm-hmm.
But it means that they're not going after kind of the economy, low cost driving stuff. There's always going to be a consumer for that,
right?
And we're not trying to compete for that.
Sure.
It costs way too much.
Right.
But again, the more competitors and kind of in our space doing authentic things like we are, we're happy to.
Who is your competitor?
So there's some specialty pickle groups out there. There's Rick's Picks. There's Grillo's. They're in the refrigerated set. And I'd mentioned they just sold to King's Hawaiian Buns, which I think is a great move for King's Hawaiian, right? It really rounds out their portfolio.
Right.
There is Sucker Punch Gourmet. They're a jarred brand. They're out of Illinois, I think. Okay. So they've done a really good job of getting into retail markets. Mm-hmm. I don't think any of those own their own manufacturing facility. They're all co-producing and stuff like that. So I think that's a plus for us. That's an
advantage for sure
to innovate on.
When you think about, and they kind of go hand in hand. But when you think about, your product innovation, are you a pickle company? Are you a packed vegetable company? Well, how do you think about, McClure's? Is it pickles? Pickles, or are you guys, thinking of yourselves, differently as you guys evolve?
I would probably answer that question differently a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I'd say a few years ago, I probably had an idea of what I thought the company or saw the company as. It's like this. We're a value. We're a lifestyle company. We believe in this, and we're creating experiences. And I think that's great language to convey, right? What a business is, right? But we're a pickle company, right? That makes pickled foods, and we have some other products that complement our core products.
Sure.
Ultimately, those create great experiences, right? Because we're good people to work with. Mm-hmm. We make great quality products. We care about what we do, and we care about the people who work for us. Mm-hmm. So yeah, a couple of years ago, I probably would have, had kind of this. It almost would have sounded like a Silicon Valley kind of pitch to it. Yeah. Right. And that rang a little hollow. I was just like, well, this is a kind of an idea of what I think it should be or how we should present ourselves.
Don't a lot of things like coming out of the coast feel a little hollow? It feels like, I hate to like knock on like tech or whatever, but it feels like it's like this weird, I just feel like in the Midwest, there's a little bit more of the down to earth kind of approach to business, which is not so, I don't know, nebulous and philosophical.
It's a little more grounded.
Yeah, grounded, right?
But it's like I see a lot of CPG companies adopting, that language, that stuff like that, because they're looking to sell their brand, flip their brand, grow their brand, whatever. So they've got to pitch it to a VC, and they're like, we are a value-driven company that will do this and this and this. By the way, we sell pickles. Yeah. And it's like,
it's like,
it sounds like it's a commercial. Yeah. Right. And I'm like, that doesn't. Yeah. I answer that differently.
You're just
now,
fluffing.
Right?
You're just,
we're a pickle company.
Yeah. I like that. I wanted to ask you, because I struggle with this, and maybe you have some good ideas. How do you guys look at marketing your brand on a national, international, Australia, New Zealand, UK? How do you do that? Do you have a huge marketing company? Do you work with, an agency? Do you have what's your strategy? Because brands like ours, every dollar counts, and it's like, how do you spend that most effectively on the marketing side? Yeah. I'm just curious.
I don't know. I mean, we don't have a strategy, which we could probably benefit from. We don't have a huge marketing agency. We use a social media agency, so I think that's obviously a very powerful tool, right, to reach consumers in a very economical way, and your ideal kind of core consumers too. When it's in the store, it's kind of. I throw my hands up. I don't really know. I can do promotional dollars. I can, and that has an effect to a small degree, right? Whereas, and that's where I kind of envy the liquor space is like, I get so many people asking me for promotions, on a quarterly, yearly basis. Yeah. And if I don't do it with this retailer, they're upset at that retailer. Yeah. And then I take the blame, and I'm like, if it was just state controlled, it would just be across the board. Right. And I'm tired of dealing with it because it gets a bump in sales, but then a consumer just gets used to it and used to it and used to it.
And the retailer does, and it's like,
why
are you
paying it? Yeah, right. Why don't you just give me a lower price? Or, Vlasic or whoever is always low price. Why can't you come down? I'm like, well, I've got a lot more costs that go into my product.
Right.
So, we rely on, in some of the stores that you see, we have these merchandising racks that present our product in a very unique way. They're not cheap. They're expensive to put in, to install, but I can demonstrate that they're going to generate sales. So that is a visual type of marketing for like in-store brick and mortar spaces. Digital, we're doing a lot of AdWords, advertising, stuff like that. I don't know what the measurement of that is, right? How do I measure?
How do you quantify it?
ROI, or do I just chalk it up to marketing and say, okay, I'm going to spend this and let it roll?
I know marketing's effective, but I don't know how to quantify it. It's basically, it's one of the most nebulous things in business. And I'm, right now I'm in charge of our marketing department, and I'm like trying to figure out how to justify. In certain products, it's easier because you can click rates and funnels, and if you have an e-commerce store, super easy to measure that, right? Because you can have a digital spend that's connected to an e-commerce, transaction, and you can follow that journey digitally. But when you're in like our world, it's like you don't know how effective that $1 million spend is or isn't on, but you see sales going up, so you're like, okay, it's working, I think, but it's not really. It's very nebulous, and so I have my bosses, my dad and uncle, and our COO. They're like, how do you know? And I'm like, I don't. I think it's working, and and can we spend more money? That's kind of it. It's like, I think it's working, but like I don't have a better answer, and maybe that means I need to hire someone who's smarter than me in marketing to help solve that answer. But I'm always kind of curious because it's like one of the most nebulous things. I've spent so much time racking my brain on the effectiveness.
Can you do demos in store? Can you sample? Or do you have to have a permit, right? In stores?
No, you can do demos in stores. That's very effective.
Yeah. I mean, that's like a tangible here. So, try it, you buy it, take the
and so like, and I think, we've went real heavy in like the digital space, and I think it's worked. But I think we need to get back to, now that like COVID's kind of lifting, I think that's going to be an area we get into.
Back into. Yeah, it's not cheap to do that, but obviously you're getting an interpersonal experience where people are trying your product for either the first time, or a new product that you have an existing consumer. Like we do that at Costco and smaller retailers, and it's wildly effective.
Right. So what do you what's the end goal for McClure's? Is it is there some goal that you're...
I want to be doing this until I can't do it anymore.
I love it.
That's it.
Yeah, that's
you know,
awesome.
I mean, we've gotten offers to sell. We've gotten offers to invest. My parents, you know, raised my brother and I to, you know, they have an incredible work ethic, right? And I value that. We love what we do. I don't want to stop. You know, if there's a point where I stop loving what I'm doing, then that might be, you know, something to consider and change. But I love what we're doing.
Right. That's awesome, man. Well, I'm a huge fan, and you know, love the brand and love, you know, proud that you guys are from Michigan, and you know, to the degree that we can link up and do some things together, I'd love to.
Yeah.
So,
you know, talking about your kits, you know, I mean, that's where I think some innovation with other key brand partners, figuring out the whole like nuts and bolts of logistics wise, you know, what does that look like? You know, you look at Zingerman's, that's a company that has really done some, you know, even before like kind of this, people have been shopping e-commerce or on their phones and stuff like that. Like they were like the gift.
Yeah.
Well,
they're like a catalog
Yes.
company, right?
Yeah.
And they do so many things well, and they're great storytellers of their story. But you know, they kind of were, they kind of had the e-commerce thing figured out before e-commerce. They had a catalog going. Actually, our event, one of our event gals like brought in this catalog that she subscribes to, and I'm like, I'm flipping through it. I'm like, holy shit, dude, this is like, there's a million things on here that I want to buy. Yeah. So, yeah, I do. Maybe we got to just start a subscription company. We get like 5.
Yeah, and it's a fulfillment center. And
and get like 5 companies that add products to it, and you know, figure out types of boxes. There's something there for sure. You know, we'll have to brainstorm around it. I see you wearing an archery shirt. Do you shoot?
Yeah. Do you?
Yeah, I love it.
Oh, I do too.
It's amazingly therapeutic.
Yeah, no doubt. I got my son does it with me.
Oh, it's awesome.
It's do you shoot recurve or compound?
Compound.
I do recurve. Yeah.
You're badass, dude.
It's, you know, I just love it.
My father-in-law shoots recurve, and I'm like, and he does like, you know, he hunts with a longbow.
Wow.
You know, he's like, I don't know, he's like the most outdoorsy, you know, guy you'll ever meet. And he got me into it, but you know, you could spend an hour outside just like
zenning away,
just flinging arrows, dude. I love it.
You know, what I love about archery so much is that, you know, it's you're trying to repeat your consistent shot every single time, right? And the human body, just one micro, you know, movement that you even realize, right? You lift your head slightly, you're a millimeter
breathe
off.
different. If you breathe different,
your string position changes the shot.
It's so crazy. I know, and it's such a, what I love about it is the smallest of, you know, the smallest tweak in your approach and your release changes the whole flight of that arrow. I mean, it goes down to, you know, you have to breathe the same. Your mental
game too.
Yes.
Like I remember going into it thinking, all right, I gotta get this. I gotta hit yellows, you know. And then once I started relaxing, I actually shot better.
Yeah, and it's like this weird thing of like super concentration with like a detachment, you know, that you're kind of like finding a way to release and be focused at the same time. It's like the weirdest thing. And it does like something weird for my brain when I'm trying to figure it out, and I love it. So,
well, if you ever want to,
yes, I do.
You know, shoot some arrows.
Let's do it.
I carry my bag in my car all the time.
Do you really?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, we got to do it, man. Well, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, McClure's Pickles, everyone. Thanks, brother.
Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. You can find Everything Borrowed on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Show your support and drop a 5-star review to help more people find our channel. Don't forget to subscribe. Stay up to date with us on Facebook, Instagram, and everythingborrowedpodcast.com. EBP is produced by Chelsea Cox, Jason Brown, and Vox Adams. Edited and filmed by Nick Ferguson. Art is by Adam Yarborough. Everything Borrowed is an After Hours Media production. Copyright 2021.